Christa Culbert. I'm a teaching artist for Metau Arts, a nonprofit arts organization in TWSP. Today we'll be doing a lesson called Color is Magic. So here's an example of what we're going to make today. Using color to create an imaginative landscape that could have deeper meanings than just a real life picture. For this lesson, you will need a piece of paper, your watercolor paint set and brush, a pencil, some crayons or colored pencils also work, your cup of water for your watercolors, and a paper towel for your watercolors, or just a napkin or something you can use to dab up the extra water for watercolors. Today we're going to make artwork inspired by a piece by Alfredo Arreguin. This is a painting titled Orca's Strait, and it was painted in 2016 by Alfredo Arreguin. Alfredo Arreguin was born in Morelia, Mexico in 1935. As an adult, he moved to Seattle, where he'd studied art at the University of Washington. He currently lives in Seattle and creates art there. As you can probably tell by his painting, he's very inspired by nature, music, and the mythology of Mexico and the Seattle area, and, of course, by his imagination. So if you look at the piece, Orca's Strait, you'll see he uses lots of different colors. What color do you see overall? Like if you just kind of blur your eyes at it, what's the main color that you see? I think I mainly see blue when I look at it. So what does the blue overall feel of this painting make you think about? Go ahead and take a couple minutes to think about what feelings this painting gives you, or what it makes you think of when you look at it, what it reminds you of. So to me, this makes me think about an early morning, or maybe even winter, because it kind of looks like it might have snowflakes, those little white dots. But even though it's very blue and perhaps kind of a cooler feel, the painting still feels really inviting to me. And I think that's because if you look really closely, there's lots of other colors mixed in as well. So see how many colors you can find in this painting. I can find green, yellow, purple, red, pink, dark blue, dark purple, light blue, white, basically all the colors. So if you look really closely, you can see he uses lots of warm colors underneath the blue, kind of in little dots or spirals in the sky. And these warm colors, which, as we talked about last week, are red, orange, and yellow, make the painting feel really inviting. So if it was just cool colors like blue, the painting might feel cold or distant. And because he mixes in all these exciting colors underneath the blue, the painting has a feeling of warmth to it, despite the blue, and it also feels a little like magic to me. Like this is not a strictly real-world image we're looking at. This image is from someone's imagination or has some hidden meaning behind it. Today we're going to be making a piece inspired by Orca's Strait, using lots of different colors layered underneath and a blue layer on top. Great, so we're going to make our own landscapes inspired by Orca's Strait. So here's one I did earlier. And you can see I layered crayon in different kind of patterns or shapes and different warm colors underneath. Some cool colors too, like this green. And I used some white crayon here to make these white stripes. And then I did a watercolor wash over it, which gives it that overall blue feeling. So, and you can see I'm being very directly inspired by Orca's Strait, and that's totally okay. It's okay to be inspired by someone else's painting and do a painting that's similar to it, as long as you let other people know that it's inspired by that person's work. So this is my painting inspired by Orca's Strait. So let's make our own paintings now. So I'm going to start with my pencil, and we're going to start by just drawing a landscape like he's done. So that's kind of a view of the water and the hills and the mountains. So I'm going to do pretty similar to what he's done. If you want to do a different landscape, like the Methow Valley, that's also totally fine. So I've kind of drawn where my water's going to go, and then I'll draw some hills in the background. And then I'll draw some mountains behind that. Okay. Now, if you want to draw an orca, like the one in Orca's Strait, that is great. That's what I did for my first one here, is I drew this orca. Or if you want to draw some other fish or sailboats, any of that would be great. So I'm going to draw some fish for this one, actually. And remember, this does not have to be a realistic image. So your fish don't have to be realistic. They don't have to be a realistic size. All of that you can just kind of leave up to your imagination. Great, so take a few minutes now to finish up your landscape pencil drawing. Great, so now that we've finished up kind of outlining our landscape in pencil, we're going to use some crayons, or if you have colored pencils instead of crayons, that also works. So I'm going to get my crayons. I'm actually just going to sort them out into warm and cool colors. So let's see, yellow, red, orange are warm colors, blue, green, and purple are cool colors. Brown is kind of a warm color. That could go with warm colors. Great. So go ahead and sort your crayons or colored pencils into warm and cool colors. Okay, now let's start with our warm colors. And you can just pick any of your warm colors, and we're going to start by making little patterns or little marks on the paper as it's going to show through when we do the blue watercolor over it. So you can think about waves, and maybe make some triangles for waves, or in the painting, he makes kind of like half circles. You can kind of just have fun, make lots of different marks with your crayons. You can use different colors, maybe some red waves. Maybe you want to add a sun in the sky like he has. So you can kind of add a sun and use different, try not to just color anything in a solid color, try to make just little marks. So lines, zigzags, circles, squiggly lines. All of those things. You can make patterns with your marks. So take a few moments now and you can just kind of go crazy adding in all different patterns and marks to your page with your warm colors. Great, so now that you've added in some warm colored crayon and patterns on your page, you can also add in some cool colors. So if you look at the painting, he has some cool greens, he's got some purples. If you have a white crayon, you could add in some white pattern on the mountains, which then will show up white when we watercolor over it. So take a few moments now to add some cool colored patterns into your landscape with crayon. Great, so now you've added lots of patterns into your landscape using both warm colors and some cool colors, like here's purple and blue and green that I added in. Okay, one last step with the crayons, and that is we need to color in our fish if we haven't already done so. So you can either outline them and then add some patterns in them, or just outline them if you want. But go ahead and take a few moments now in either warm or cool colors to outline or color in or add patterns to your fish or orcas, or whatever else you have in your landscape. Great, so now that we've added in lots of patterns and texture into our landscape, we're going to use our watercolors. So you can kind of get your watercolors out, get your brush wet, and we're going to use mainly blue for our watercolors. Okay, so you get some blue ready, and then we're going to paint over our landscape using blue. And now if you look at the painting Orca Strait, there's a lot of texture in the painting, right? So it's not just a flat layer of color. There's like kind of what we added, these beautiful colors underneath and patterns underneath. Lots of spirals here and stars. But then the blue also isn't just a uniform blue. So there's dark blues, there's light blues, there's purpley blues, and it's added on in a way that gives it texture. So when you're painting, you can experiment with your brush and maybe just dab at it like this. Kind of creates a different texture than if I just take a layer and wash over it, which you can also do that. So kind of experiment with texture, experiment with mixing your blue from your palette, experiment mixing a little bit of red into it, which will give you a more purpley blue, just a little bit of red. And now I have kind of a darker, more purpley blue. Or you can mix some yellow into your blue to get a little bit more of a green blue. So take a few moments now, and you want to color your whole page in different shades of blue. You could leave some white in the mountains if you want, or in the water if you want some kind of watery waves. But take a few moments now to add lots of watercolor onto your painting. Okay, great. So now we've colored in with watercolor our imaginative landscape inspired by Orca Strait. So if you can see, I've used some different shades of blue. So this is kind of a green blue, which looks nice against my purple crayon, I think. Down here I've got a more purple blue. And if you remember, purple and yellow are complementary colors. So purple and yellow look really nice next to each other. I've got some darker blues, some lighter blues up in the mountains. And here in the mountains, I left some white space where I didn't paint it all. And that makes the mountains look a little bit snowy. And you can see the white space in the water, which came from me using a textured brush stroke instead of a wash. Makes the water look like it's rippling or like there's light bouncing off of it. So the texture and the color really gives this painting a lot of life. Great, so now we've made our paintings inspired by Alfredo Arreguin's Orca Strait painting. So today we learned how color doesn't necessarily have to look realistic, and when it's not realistic, it can give the painting lots of different feelings, or it can make it feel kind of magic, like it's coming out of someone's imagination, and there might be another story behind it than strictly just being a representational painting, which looks really similar to reality. So thanks for joining me today, and I enjoyed painting with you. I look forward to seeing you next week.